with Baleful Strix, Delver of Secrets, Snapcaster Mage, Click, and Jace, and then a plethora of discard and counter spells.
Or as I like to call it, blue-black do nothing.
The Grindhouse.
Yes, does nothing every turn. While Jacob Kory, who someone Pat is rather familiar with, is playing the Maverick, which is a deck I'm sure that you guys are rather familiar with. So he'll be playing his green-white deck based mostly around Knight of the Reliquary with some Green Sun Zenith targets and some mana dorks like this one here in Noble Hierarch.
So turn 1 Cavern of Souls enables the Noble Hierarch, and Cavern on Human is very good against AJ's deck since he has a lot of his ways of fighting cards like Knight of the Reliquary are his counter spells.
And for those who are wondering what humans are in Maverick, Noble Hierarch, Knight of the Reliquary, Thalia, Garden of Thraben. You're also going to find Mother of Runes actually as a human now as well. So there is a Stoneforge Mystic is also a human, so there's a pretty healthy number of humans in this guy.
Is Fauna Shaman a human?
I believe that is an elf.
As an elf,
yes.
Okay. So does he have the combo package with Fauna Shaman? Does he have
like loyal retainers? You will not find that in this particular list. Now, the only real spice that you'll find his one-ofs in his deck. There's 1 Fauna Shaman, 1 Stoneforge Mystic, 1 Linvala, Keeper of Silence, 1 Gaddock Teague, 1 Scrib Ranger, and the only one that may be a little bit different for some people is 1 Sylvan Safekeeper.
Okay. So Noble Hierarch is matched by Delver of Secrets from AJ. I'm of the opinion this match was probably pretty bad for AJ. Most of the deck is definitely devoted to trying to fight sort of the unfair decks of the format, and is actually not very good against decks that just want to brawl, and that is what the Maverick deck does best. So
yeah, it has extremely efficient creatures, extremely efficient hate bears, and if Knight of the Reliquary gets active, things get out of control quickly between searching for Wasteland, searching for Horizon Canopy, searching for Gaia's Cradle or Caracas. There's a lot of things that Knight of the Reliquary is going to turn on.
Now, AJ has 2 copies of Perish in the sideboard, which are obviously quite good here, but game 1 he doesn't have a lot in the way. He's got a couple spot removal spells, but not a lot in the way of fighting what Jacob's going to be up to.
Yep.
Kory is kind of one of the rising stars of the pretty deep Orange County / LA area legacy scene. There's a lot of legacy tournaments run in the area, and between Nightwares and GGGLs, a bunch of other spots. So regularly gets a lot of attendance, and he recently had a very good finish at Grand Prix Indianapolis, which was legacy. I believe he followed that up with, it might have actually been a win in one of the Open Series, but at least a top 8 shortly thereafter in the legacy portion. Always with Maverick.
Sure, rather proficient with this deck.
Yeah.
AJ, if you guys may not have saw, revealed Go for the Throat to Delver of Secrets, and was able to flip it that way. So that is why he's able to get in for 3 now, and now a Linvala, Keeper of Silence, is hitting the stack. And now this is going to be interesting because if you can see AJ's hand, he has a Go for the Throat for the Linvala, and he also has his 1 of Reanimate in his hand.
Yes. So for those of you not familiar with Sam's deck here that AJ is piloting, the one Reanimate is kind of on the philosophy that you have a bunch of your own targets like Snapcaster Mage, Baleful Strix, and Vendilion Click, which are totally reasonable Reanimate targets. Also, in the Reanimate matchup, obviously, if you're able to fight over their reanimation spells, you can often tag their Grizzlebrand or whatever it is that they're happening to try to reanimate.
And so, in particular in this matchup, this is a card that will typically not be good, because reanimating a Thalia or reanimating a Knight of the Reliquary is not really exceptional. But in this particular situation, I think this is the one card that AJ actually wants to reanimate when playing against this deck.
Yeah, because Linvala is mostly for the mirror, so this is kind of ideal.
Yeah, Linvala is for the Maverick mirror, and now it is in play on his side, which is just insane. So now all of Jacob's Noble Hierarchs, Knight of the Reliquary, Scavenging Ooze, Qasali Pride Mage, Mother of Runes, Sylvan Safekeeper, Fauna Shaman, those cards are off now.
And there's a 1 of Creeping Tar Pit. I watched AJ in one of the matches I was birding kill his opponent with that and his Esper Stoneblade opponent.
All right, so he's going to fight. He's going to try to sort this as the last 2 cards.
So AJ's going to force here for 2 reasons. One is obviously the Linvala is quite good here. Secondly, because of Cavern of Souls, he's not going to be able to force a lot of other stuff.
Yeah. Umezawa Jitte's not bad. AJ is out of cards at this point, so the Jitte is definitely a reasonable threat now. It can be equipped to the Noble Hierarchs. Exalted's going to be able to get the damage through, and then Jitte can eventually take over this game.
So AJ tanking here. A land, he's in an okay spot. A land or a spell here, both pretty good. A land allows him to attack with his creeping tar pit and hit for 9. And a spell naturally is a spell. So see what he rips here in a second.
And most of AJ's draws are pretty good. The discard are the worst draws that he can have.
Yeah. Jacob, after his good run of tournaments in the such a Maverick aficionado that after his good run of tournaments at the Grand Prix and the Open Series, he actually splurged on a bunch of beta Savannas. So now he is priced into playing Maverick until, I suppose he stops playing Legacy.
Until it's banned.
Yeah. So it looks like we're going to be just getting in with the Insectile Aberration, and he has another Delver.
Another Delver. So he's going to pass back. So he's not in the best spot here. The Jitte is going to be a serious problem. Obviously, he thought that by putting Linval into play, he would probably, lock Jacob out of a lot of the things that his deck wants to accomplish. However, the one Umezawa's Jitte is causing quite a problem right now.
I mean, yeah, it's a slog. He basically needs to answer the last guy. I would assume here that the Jitte is going to finish off the Linvala, would be my assumption.
Yeah, it's either going to be the Linvala or it's going to be the Delver. I would assume it's going to be the Linvala. It's causing the most problems.
Also, because he lost an Exalted guy the next turn, if he left the Linvala, the Jitte wouldn't be enough to kill the Noble Hierarch. The Noble Hierarch plus the Jitte wouldn't be enough to take down Linvala the next turn.
Sure.
1 plus the 2 Jitte counters.
Our follow-up here is going to be Green Sun Zenith for looks to be 2.
Is that going to get a Scrib Ranger to go get?
He has a Scrib Ranger in his deck. He also has Fauna Shaman. He can chain down a little bit.
I would assume you just want to get your...
Okay, it looks like it may have been for 1.
Oh, okay, you only had it for 1. Okay. Never mind. At this point, yeah, he just needs to get more dorks to keep his Jitte going.
Yeah. Now, AJ blocking with Linvala, I think, is pretty smart as well, because if he does draw Snapcaster Mage, he can Snapcaster Mage, just reanimate, and get Linvala back.
Just run it right back.
Yeah, maybe cause a little bit of trouble that way. Delver is going to flip. We cannot see what he has drawn yet. Hopefully he'll help us out with that. No.
I mean, most spells that aren't discard spells here are good. It's basically a cantrip's reasonable, and certainly a kill spell would be awesome.
Yes.
The Spell Pierce. All right, so that's horrendous.
A big stinker. Yeah. Awful.
So now it's AJ's, debating between basically attacking for 1 with both guys or 1 guy. The upside of only attacking with 1 guy, I guess now that with the second Exalted guy, it's just a flat trade. All right, I guess he has to just send both.
Yeah, I think he has to send both. Hope to draw a land so he can activate Tar Pit and just keep doing that and hopefully be able to overpower the Jitte. It seems rather unlikely he'll be able to do that, but I think that gives him his best opportunity to win.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's actually not too bad, right? He attacks Kory down to 5, and then if he goes Jitte Equip, kill one of your Insectile Aberrations, a land just kills him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a Wasteland in play.
Oh,
so,
right,
never
okay,
mind.
Sorry. So now, yeah, then we definitely just need to draw, then we just need a kill spell. Okay.
Wasteland will take care of that. Yeah, removal spell is rather important at this point.
Yeah, he has a... Yeah, now he can't even really draw Snapcaster Mage.
What removal spells does he have access to?
Go for the Throat, Ghastly Demise. He just drew a Jace.
Hi, not you.
So at this point, you probably want to hang back and block, because knocking him to 2 doesn't really matter here, and you'd rather leave him with a Jitte with 2 counters on it than a Noble Hierarch.
Sure. The problem is you're obviously trying to run Jacob out of creatures, but when you're playing against a deck that has, it has 26 creatures and 4 Green Sun Zeniths, it's what you have to try to do, but it's not realistic for it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, he basically needs to draw a kill spell and then running lands. It's asking a lot.
There's a Sylvan Library to ensure that he is always going to have a creature.
And he has Noble Hierarch plus Windswept Heath to be able to pay for the Spell Pierce.
Yeah,
AJ's going to fire it off here anyway.
It's going to deal him 1, which isn't terrible, but...
Basically, doing it this way prevents Kory from using his mana to be able to equip the Noble Hierarch this turn.
Yes.
It forces him to use 2 mana the following turn.
Correct.
And you're probably not going to do anything with that Spell Pierce, so...
That Spell Pierce is not going to get any better, especially against this deck. There's a chance that, you know, it does counter a Green Sun Zenith for 3. I think that's the best it's going to get.
Okay, well, he just pondered into Ghastly Demise, Gitaxian Probe land, so that is a start.
It's something.
Yeah, that's definitely about as good as you can ask for. It allows him to kill the Noble Hierarch and start cantripping to find his 3rd and 4th lands.
And if there is one card that can save AJ in this situation, Jace the Mind Sculptor is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough, but...
No, yeah, that's going to be a slog, but... So the reason that instead of using it right... AJ could have used his Ghastly Demise right away on the Noble Hierarch, but I believe that he feels that it's too enticing for Jacob to try to equip his Jitte and use his mana that way. So we could potentially get Kory to burn 2 mana trying to re-equip.
Sure.
But if it looks like Kory has found a...
Zenith for 0.
Yeah, this is actually... You know, now this is a little bit crappy for AJ that he didn't use the Ghastly Demise straight away because Kory did end up using all of his mana, but you'd still rather have the Ghastly Demise for the Knight of the Reliquary than
Noble Hierarch.
Yeah.
You're still just going to keep waiting. You're playing a very dangerous game by waiting with Knight of the Reliquary because 1 activation is so good.
Yeah, I think he just has to... I mean, he's not taxed for mana, so he might as well wait, I guess.
Yeah, he doesn't have to kill to end of turn. He can probe, draw a card. Jacob has no hand.
Yeah.
He has all the information available to him. I mean, I would probably want to kill that knight.
I think that he wants to use his Ghastly Demise to break up a Jitte.
Break up a Jitte. Okay.
And he's willing to let Kory spin the knight once.
Okay.
Also, especially since it's so, the knight actually might be lethal this turn if he attacks, so there's a good chance that's where the Jitte goes anyway.
Sure.
And then you get him to burn his 2 counters pumping.
Which is what he has to hope for.
Yeah.
And plus with Rising Canopy, that's going to sack to draw a card, so maybe he just moves all in here.
Yeah, and then this is a very good Ghastly Demise.
Pump.
All right, and now we're going to get the Ghastly
Demise.
So AJ definitely getting paid off for being patient here.
Yeah. He's got to draw the land.
And even then, it's still...
Jace. I mean, and even then, it's still difficult. But
yeah, I mean, he can't unsummon. He has to just brainstorm basically. Because Jace just dies if he brainstorms.
Yeah. Well, no, Jace just dies if he unsummons. Well, Jace doesn't die if he unsummons.
Well, he goes down to 2, and then he has Noble Hierarch plus Dryad Arbor. I guess you can unsummon the Arbor.
Yeah, you unsummon the Arbor.
So, AJ has actually just drawn the land.
You sure that's a Scalding Tarn? I mean, that's what it looks like, but...
Right. So we can go down to 2, unsummon the Dryad Arbor, and then he's live.
Yeah, he can play a game.
Yeah, then he has to brainstorm into total gas next turn, but we're playing.
I think he's going to get. I think it's going to. Assuming that he has another island, another swamp in his deck, I think he's going to get Island Swamp just so that he's wasteland proof.
Yeah.
He'll get an island with the Scalding Tarn, a swamp with the Polluted Delta.
Play I don't know,
Jace.
He has how many swamps does he have in the deck? He only has 1 swamp in the deck, so he's just getting his seas.
So he's just going to get his seas. Play Jace, bounce Arbor, pass back. Hope that Sylvan Library isn't a giant beating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jacob's only drawn 1 for a while here, so it's possible that at least his top 2 aren't particularly good.
I guess also Jacob is at 4, so he can actually draw an extra card with Sylvan Library, to be fair.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, which is something.
Oh, he's just brainstorming?
He's brainstorming. That's interesting.
Oh, we had that swapped. I was sorry. I was looking at the other way. AJ's at 10. Never mind. He's got breathing room. My bad.
I still thought he was going to bounce his guy that turn, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe he doesn't need to, but like another Noble Hierarch is going to kill his Jace. with the Dryad Arbor.
Well, he's down to 2. I guess any Exalted guy kills his Jace.
Yeah, any Exalted guy kills his Jace, and any Zenith kills his Jace. So I figured that he would bounce his guy, but I guess that still leaves him in the same situation of any Exalted guy kills his Jace because it's at 2 counters and there's a Noble Hierarch in play, so the situation doesn't change. And that Jitte's going to get 2 counters because unlike a sword, Umezawa's Jitte is just whenever they deal combat damage.
There's a Thalia.
Looks like he has an upkeep effect. Thought Scour for 2 mana instead of 1.
Yeah, he has to pay 2 because of the Thalia, and I guess he knows that whatever he had set from the Jace was just trash, so...
Draws a Jace, draws his card, Delver. Not the best draw.
Yeah. The Jitte is basically just making spot removal and blocking a pretty helpless endeavor.
And the interesting thing, about Umezawa's Jitte is typically you think of that card as being very good in creature-oriented matchups. The Mirror, fairly good against Rug Delver, that sort of thing. But even against a control deck, the threat of that card having counters on it is a lot to overcome for a control deck that doesn't have very many creatures as well.
Yeah, I mean, this list is pretty soft to a Jitte once it actually gets online. Doesn't have a lot of spot removal to break it up. It certainly doesn't have sweepers to clear the board. And then if you look at the creature base, it's Vendilion Click, Baleful Strix, Snapcaster Mage, Delver of Secrets.
Sure.
Not the most durable set of creatures you could have against an opposing Jitte.
Sure, 2 counters on a Jitte is just like actual trouble for AJ.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's going to be able to wiggle his way out of this situation. And one thing that he needs to keep in mind, and this is something that happened yesterday in one of the matches that we covered, is that time is obviously something that you always need to keep in mind when you're playing. AJ's deck definitely takes a long time to win because, as you said, there are no real powerful threats in his deck. And killing someone with Jace activations does take a little while.
Yeah.
But Maverick also, even though it is an aggressive green-white deck, it's not the fastest deck in the world. There are decisions to be made with Knight of the Reliquary and in between shuffling with all these fetch lands and Zenithing.
Yep, it has its own grindy elements as well. Certainly.
Yeah.
So I suppose a bit surprised AJ has not conceded this game since.
I don't ever want to pronounce anyone dead.
But I mean, he's got however much 33 and counting minutes and fewer minutes to try to win 2 games.
Sure.
Not the easiest against Maverick.
Doctors pronounce people dead, Patrick. Not the news. Cradle. It's a card I feel that should be in every Maverick deck. It's becoming standard now, but I think it should be in every single one. He's going to go to get attacking in here. Both of his guys. Surprised he's not removing the Jitte counter, but he is going to play around removal.
Yeah, I guess it's potentially bad for him if he were to, attack, remove the counter, and then there's... I actually don't even know what he's playing around, really. Okay. I guess we're not playing around anything. Okay.
The thing that Jacob doesn't know is he has no idea what AJ's removal suite is. He's seen it go for the throat, he's seen a Galphanimize. He doesn't know if there are 2 and 3 copies of each of those cards. He doesn't know if there's 1. He has no idea either way.
Yeah, there's 1 copy of each.
Yeah, so he's just being a little bit cautious, which he can afford to do, given his board position. He's going to sack the Canopy, get himself a new card. Looks like a Hierarch is going to cast a Knight of the Reliquary, and he's going to pass back. This is probably going to be a quick brainstorm plus a draw step, because AJ, I'm pretty sure, knows that he's dead. If you see AJ move that fast, either the opponent is dead or he is dead.
Yeah.
Because AJ is a very deliberate player.
So, going in the sideboard here, this is not, AJ will get to cut his, I'm assuming he's just going to cut a bunch of his counter spells, like the Forces, the Pierce, and the Snare are all not at their best here. Some of the discard too. In his sideboard, he has access to a Diabolic Edict, a Nihilist Spellbomb, which is like it has some value against Knight of the Reliquary, but it's pretty marginal for the most part. A copy of Dark Blast, 2 copies of Python Needle, and 2 copies of Perish, and 2 copies of Dread of Night, all of which have value. Dread of Night tagging Thalia and Mother of Runes, Perish tagging all the green guys, and then Python Needle possibly giving him some sort of answer to Netherworld, Kory, Umezawa's Jitte, Mother of Runes, whatever. There's some catch-alls there.
Definitely a lot of targets. Scavenging use as well. There's a lot of targets here. From Jacob's side, it's possible that he does board in Life from the Loam. He did see 2 Underground Seas from AJ. Don't know what other non-basics he has, but that's certainly a possibility. Oblivion Ring, I think, will come in because of Jace the Mind Sculptor. Looking at the rest of his cards, Phyrexian Revoker I could see coming in for Jace the Mind Sculptor. An additional Umezawa's Jitte could also come in. He has 1 Umezawa's Jitte and 1 Sword of Light and Shadow in his main deck. He may want to swap that sword out for a second Jitte because of how good it was that first game. He also has a Crop Rotation, a Bajuka Bog, which I don't think either of those will come in, and then 2 spicy ones that we haven't seen in this deck. And I haven't seen this card in a while, Armageddon.
And Armageddon is, I would assume, definitely going to come in here.
Yes, I would expect it to come in as well.
I know Brian Kibler is a huge advocate of a singleton Armageddon, but I believe that is more for reasons of nostalgia than necessarily believing it to be correct.
Sure. And I'm as big of an Armageddon fan as you're going to find. I would love to see a reprint so I could play a White Weenie deck with that effect again, because that was before my time. But it's kind of a surprise that Armageddon doesn't see more play in this format outside of traditionally white stacks decks.
Yeah. I mean, there's just very few, like, actual, pure control decks in the format. There's a bunch of decks that have a bunch of soft counters and they have some sort of clock, whether it's creatures or a combo kill. But a deck like Sacher's here is just not a huge part of the format.
Sure. Now, one interesting decision that Jacob has to make as well is if he's going to leave in his Gaddock Teeg. I know that the cards that we saw, and I know you have AJ's deck list in front of you, the cards that we saw that are kind of affected by Gaddock Teeg are Jace the Mind Sculptor and Force of Will. Is there anything else that is really affected?
No. Everything else is live.
Okay. And of course, it's going to affect one of the cards in his deck as well, in Jacob's deck as well, in Green Sun Zenith. So it's kind of just a risk-reward type of thing. Is this a card that I'm going to be Zenithing for? Is this how I want to go out winning this matchup? Or am I just going to be Zenithing for Dryad Arbor, Knight of the Reliquaries, that sort of thing? How far is Gaddock Teeg going to take me?
Yeah, I mean, again, it has some utility, not a lot, and it's just a question of if he feels he has cards in sideboard that are actually just worse.
Sure. But one card that we are fairly positive that is going to come out is Umezawa, Keeper of Silence. He dodged his own bullet there, and I don't think that he wants to have that thing discarded or killed and then reanimated again.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens. I mean, I agreed with you at the top that I think this matchup does favor Jacob. For what Maverick tries to accomplish, it seems difficult for AJ to win.
Jacob going down to 6 rather. But I think certainly Sacher's sideboard is much better than Kory's for the matchup.
Yes.
Like cards like Perish and other kill spells are just much better than sort of the marginal upgrades that Kory's making. Although if AJ actually bails on all of his permission entirely, then he is very exposed to Armageddon.
Yes, absolutely. There are going to be windows of opportunity for Jacob to cast Armageddon to end the game on the spot. Yeah. I'm sure that's going to happen on occasion where if Armageddon is his draw step, it will end the game immediately. Yeah. But I mean, that's the kind of effect that Armageddon produces.
Right, and that's sort of the bind that Sacher's in this matchup is I don't think he can really keep in his like Force of Will, his spells, Pierce, his, the permission that he has, the Thoughtseize and Cabal therapies, like all these cards are pretty marginal against Maverick.
Yeah, but with a deck with how redundant a deck Maverick is, it's hard to guess, without looking at their hand first, what threats they have with a Cabal therapy and that sort of thing.
So it looks like AJ's drawing a Dark Blast.
They both obviously with land go. I believe AJ has a Dark Blast. He also has a Dread of Night in his hand and a Ghastly Demise, along with a Snapcaster Mage.
Good set of removal.
Sacrificing of the Windswept Teeth is going to be the first point of damage of this particular game, bringing Jacob down to 19. He's going to search out of Savannah. We'll see what he's going to follow up with. This feels like a Thalia to me, but we will see momentarily.
Zenith.
Yeah, it looks to be a Zenith for 1. He's going to get a Noble Hierarch, which is no longer going to be with us.
Yep. That Dark Blast, this is pretty much an ideal play from Sacher's perspective because he also has a Snapcaster Mage in his hand and a Ghastly Demise, so dredging is a lot of value for him.
Yeah, dredging is a very real possibility at this point.
I don't know if he's going to start spinning the wheel right away, but
now, there's nothing that makes him spin the wheel right away.
so
we
he's
see
catching a Thoughtseize.
we do see a Thoughtseize going on the stack here to put AJ over to 18. Jacob just throws his hand over.
Path to Exile, Plow, Get RT, Jitte. So just a really bad hand for Kory.
Yeah.
I assume we're going to be taking the Jitte and using a kill spell on Galactique and letting him choke on all of his kill spells.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing here is that I think that Jacob has too much removal in his deck post-board.
Right.
I mean, being able to deal with Delver is important, but the way that that particular game played out, Jacob didn't really see much from AJ outside of 2 Delvers and a Jace. So maybe he thinks he has more creatures than he actually does, that sort of thing.
It's also possible, based on the game that I watched him play against Esperblade, where he was very quick to sight out his Delvers, and he'd rather just, against the decks with, Plow and Path, he'd rather just try to grind them down with Jace, especially after they diluted their deck with spot removal. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was in the same place here, if his Delvers were actually the cards in the sideboard right now.
Sure, I think Jace is his best avenue to victory.
So I assume we're going to see a Dark Blast Dread of Night turn here.
That is my assumption, yeah. Dark Blast is going to take care of that guy. He's going to play his land, he's just going to pass back. Snapcaster in hand, not sure. Can't really see what the other card is, but AJ is doing just fine right now. Wasteland from Jacob is going to
surprised. I probably would have Wastelanded right away because of the threat of Jace.
Sure, you don't want that resolving. If that resolves, this game's basically over. So AJ pondering.
So he's looking at Perish, Pithing Needle, and land. I assume he's going to draw the Needle and the Perish and then dredge the Dark Blast.
He can either dredge the Dark Blast or sack the fetch land.
Sure.
To slide through that. As we see Thalia going to the graveyard from Dread of Night. Small mistake there by Jacob.
Probably not too meaningful in the scheme of things, given that his hand is atrocious. But yeah, I'd rather at least give myself a chance of drawing a Pride Mage and busting that up than
as he
throwing it in the graveyard.
As he turns it around towards him to read it. He's like, all right, what exactly? Okay, I just want to make sure I know how this works. AJ turns it back to him, one-upping him. Don't touch my cards. And you guys are going to see that AJ is consistently using that Creeping Tar Pit instead of tapping his islands. And the reason being is because there is a Wasteland in place, so you want to get as many uses out of that as you possibly can before it is gone.
Yeah, you don't want to expose it. Okay, so he does have a Delver, and that Ponder is pretty much ideal as it's Delver plus more cantrips. So he gets to draw the Delver this turn, cast it, and still be able to set it, set for next turn. Now he's got to eventually slog through all the plows and paths that Kory has, but
I mean, he'll get through it eventually.
He's got, time is on his side, certainly.
Yeah. He's going to lead with a path here.
So I guess the reason to lead with a path is, maybe he just assumed he's out of basics. AJ actually electing not to shuffle, even though he has an island in there because the top of his deck is so loaded.
Yeah, that he doesn't care about the path. And we just have confirmation he did choose not to search on purpose. Three mana, this looks like a knight to me. Yes, sir.
Soon this will eat a Ghastly Demise. Maybe Snapcaster maging back his Diabolic Edict if he wants to try to get some amount of pressure going, but I'm pretty sure Kory has at least one plow still left over in his hand.
Yeah, he does have one spot removal spell left in his hand, so.
And Kory's already fallen to 14 just from Horizon Canopy usage.
Dread Knight's an interesting sideboard card. I don't know if it's specifically for the Maverick matchup.
No, I would assume it's much more for a Lingering Souls-oriented deck.
Okay.
But certainly Kory has enough creatures in his deck that either die or are marginalized significantly by a Dread of Night in play.
Sure.
And again, it's also just more of an issue of getting the junky counter spells and discard spells out of his deck.
Sure. It's better than nothing. It's better than those cards that he has for game one as well.
And Sacher has actually just found a second copy of Dread Knight off of this Ponder, which is significant because now it locks out Kasali Pride Mage as well.
Okay.
which means that he can't break out of this. He can't break out of this.
So right now, for Jacob, there are a substantial amount of dead draws.
Yes.
So now all that AJ is looking to do is basically find a Jace the Mind Sculptor, begin to Fate Seal him, and get this game taken care of. One of the things you're going to notice, and if you guys have watched AJ play before, AJ's pace is normally rather deliberate. I think the point that we brought up during the back end of Game 1, I think AJ understands how much time is left in the game and how he's got to get this game over with and still needs to win another one.
Yes. I believe that's a Sylvan Safekeeper.
Yes.
One of the less heralded invitational cards historically.
Yeah, it depends on who you ask. I think Ollie's a fan.
He was good in draft.
I played him in a block Grand Prix.
Oh yeah, the red green deck.
Yes, sir.
Ugh.
20th place when I was 16.
Yeah. I read the report or whatever.
He could play. Safekeeper could play, baby.
All right, so we're gonna get our Direct Blast here. And I don't know how much Kory is willing to fight to keep the Safekeeper alive when AJ has Dark Blast at the ready.
Decision's on him.
Just turn these all into 1-mana Stone Rains with Dredge.
Yeah, not so bad. Not so bad.
Let's see.
Fire away.
Do your worst. All right, let's start here. This can really only go so poorly. All right, we're not gonna fight over this.
It's either killing a land or it's killing his guy, and that both of those things are great.
Yeah, I don't know. Kory's got a lot of. I think he's got to find a way to get some of these reactive elements out of his deck.
Yeah, I think he's not going to be best served being well. Now that he's seen what AJ's game plan is in the sideboarding games, he understands that being reactive is not really going to do anything. I mean, are you going to Swords that thing? Are you going to Swords Baleful Strix? I don't think that's where we want to be. Sorting and pathing Delver is one thing, but taking care of Baleful Strix.
We are going to sort of Baleful Strix.
Yeah, it's gone. He gone. But I think that when he goes back to his sideboard, those spot removal spells are going to leave his deck.
Yeah, I imagine we're going to at least take out some of it. There's I believe that's Armageddon. So
I'm interested.
I do not believe AJ can counter it. I wonder how much AJ has been caught off guard by this, if at all.
So something that we have said over the course of this weekend is, I play these spells in my decks so I can draw them and play them. You kind of get in the situation where, do we think it's realistic for Jacob to win this particular game?
He's still kind of drawing live. Like, in theory, Armageddon into Night of the Reliquary gives him some amount of action. He also just doesn't know how many total lands there are in AJ's deck. Like, he might be close to, out of lands. Okay. You know what I mean? He's got 4 Underground Seas and 2 other lands, it looks like, that can make mana from here. So because Armageddon gives you a snowball's chance. And also, if you're in this position also, if you're in Kory's position, not that, you want to be thinking too much about the clock management, but let's say it takes AJ down to, 8 minutes left in the round to kill you. Well, you can certainly win a game in 8 minutes.
Absolutely.
And AJ can't.
Absolutely. There's just some value to, there's 2 sides to the argument. There's the area where you don't want to show him, that card, that particular card, so he doesn't know to play around it. And then there's the value of showing him that card on purpose so that in the next game, he has to be concerned about it. And what am I going to do about Armageddon if you draw it?
Yeah, it might cause AJ to sideboard in a way he doesn't want to.
Yes.
For example, what if he ends up having to bring, Force of Will or Spell Pierce back into his deck? That's a pretty big win for you. So it looks like AJ's hand, from what I saw before he peeled it back, was pretty flush with lands.
And we see a Thoughtseize now.
Maze of Ith, Gaia's Cradle, and Swords. So a hand only a mother could love.
Yes. We see a hand with very few lands.
Yeah, that's an ugly one.
Well, it has lands.
They are neither lands nor spells.
Yes, they are cardboard.
Is another Savannah?
Beta Savannah.
Beta.
Careful, you spent a lot of money on those.
So, I'm not exactly sure. Kory's running out of threats with which he can reasonably win the game, and AJ's hand is just stocked.
He's stocked. AJ doesn't have a ton of lands. I know that he has a Delver in his hand. I'm not sure if he has another land. It looks like it might be a Marsh Flats in the left-hand corner.
So it looks like Kory drew a Verdant Catacomb on his turn, which he just played.
All right, so he has a Delta and a Marsh Flat. So Armageddon has not worked as well as Jacob has wanted it to this particular game, but it doesn't mean that the game is over.
Well, I think what we're going to see shortly is a piping needle set to Maze of Ith, and AJ start to actually apply the beat downs. The slowest of grinds.
Unless Insect Aberration comes out to play, it will be the slowest of grinds.
Soon we're going to see a maze here. There it is, yeah.
And a spell.
He's going to meet a spell snare. He's going to eat a snare. It's a Sylvan Library.
Yeah, Jacob is just much better served being the proactive deck than the reactive deck.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough to be reactive when you're green-white, of course, without any card selection outside of 2 Sylvan Libraries. So he needs to make his deck as proactive as he possibly can for this third game to overcome all of this wall of hate that AJ has in his deck after sideboard.
All right.
The Dark Slick Shores. That's a Snapcaster Mage.
I would assume we're going to get a Ponder here. Either Ponder or Brainstorm. I would err towards Ponder.
Looks.
Oh, he must have milled over a Reanimate at some point. We're gonna.
Well, if that isn't
this
the most,
is the grindiest deck
if that
of all
isn't
time.
the most pathetic thing I've ever seen.
Snapcaster Mage targeting Reanimate targeting Baleful Strix.
I threw up in my mouth a little bit.
I talked to AJ in between rounds about getting a Psychotog in this deck so we could actually kill someone.
Literally anything.
Yeah.
A Phyrexian Scuda would work.
A Grinning Demon.
Pithing Needle.
All right, that's going to get the concession. All right. 14 minutes on the clock. Plenty of time for the Grindhouse to Baleful Strix beat down someone into submission.
So going back to Jacob's deck list, he has the 4 Swords main deck, of course, and he also has 2 Path Exiles in his sideboard. I foresee those cards all moving to his sideboard now.
Yep.
A card that I actually like in Jacob's sideboard is Gutshot.
Sure.
Just to take care. We saw how good Jitte was, and Gutshot is basically going to do the same thing. The 2 points of life, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but for the most part, it's fairly irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know, he's not going to kill himself, and it's going to take AJ forever to win. So those 2 points of life is probably not going to come back to hurt him. So if I want some spot removal in my deck, I'd rather it be free removal.
It's just better than a plow, right? It just has to be. It kills all the cards exactly the same way, except for 0 mana instead of 1, and it can help you fight over chase.
Yeah.
So it's just.
And of course with Path, you don't want to give AJ a land. I know he doesn't have a ton of basics, but giving him any land is worse than giving him no land.
Unless you're trying to rope-a-dope him into the Path, you Armageddon combo.
The fish hook is in my mouth.
Did you get a land? Did you get a land?
You want to search, right?
All right, you want to search,
You're
right?
going to search. Here, I'll help you search. Here. Here, give me your deck. I'll put an island into play.
Yeah. Dark Blast was really awesome that game.
Fantastic card. When Dark Blast is good, Dark Blast is great.
Yes.
That's just how that card works.
Well, often if your opponent has a bunch of one-toughness dudes in his deck, it generally implies that they have a bunch of one-toughness dudes in their deck.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And Maverick has no shortage of them.
Right.
Being able to take care of Thalia that efficiently as well is a really, really big deal.
If I had to summarizing this deck in a nutshell would definitely be Snapcaster Mage, targeting reanimate my Baleful Strix. Just value all over the place.
And some people just love that. Some people think that is just the greatest form of magic.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how low impact my cards are, as long as they're for 2-for-1s. Eventually, we get the job done.
Hey, that's one way to play.
Yeah.
It's just not my preferred method.
No, not mine. Actually, this deck is the blue-black deck actually has some amount of charm for me because it's so over the top in the grindiness that it's
sure.
It's actually almost charming.
So you enjoy, you get some enjoyment out of this. I want to see some maniac with Charbelcher in the booth, just blowing people away in a smithereens.
Oh, it's an LA area tournament where we're gonna get some Charbelcher in the booth.
Thank goodness.
Guarantee it. Looks like Sacher's going down to 6 cards.
I want to see someone get lit up.
Like I said, going over to the one of the LA rooms yesterday after we ate food and watching them brew was a real treat.
Well, I'm hoping things break their way so I can see their brews in action.
Yeah. Some combo decks that are not certainly not conventional combo decks. But Jacob Kory, always the humble servant, just never not going to play Maverick.
It's a good deck. I played it in the Star City Games Open in Seattle, and I was a very big fan of the deck. I like everything that it does as far as the format is concerned.
I'm not a big proponent of the deck. I feel like it's basically just too fair.
Oh, it's definitely fair, but it fights the unfair decks rather well.
Yeah.
And then when you have a deck with this efficient of threats, it actually fights the other fair decks pretty well as well. So I actually like the deck quite a bit, and I think it gets unfairly judged because it is the colors of green and white, and no other colors.
That's really that's in theory the selling point of the deck is no one can ever beat you on the ground. Like any other creature deck that's trying to brawl with you can't possibly win. And then you have just enough hateful disruption to keep the dishonest decks in check. So it looks like a turn 2 Thalia from Kory. We'll see if this would be a really good time for Dreaded Knight.
Dreaded Knight or Dark Blast, either one would be good. I mean, AJ does have a handful of cards that can take care of Thalia, so realistically it should not be game over. But AJ also did have to take a mulligan this game, so it's not out of the question for it not to be that good.
And there's an Ooze, which will help fight over the Dark Blast stuff if AJ happens to have it.
One of the more innocent-looking creatures. We see a Force of Will.
Yeah. Okay, so
here for AJ. He's gonna have
possible
to pay,
that the
you have to pay 1 for that Force of Will.
And the Sylvan Safekeeper.
There we go. And Safekeeper is going to keep Thalia safe,
unless it's Dreaded Knight, in which case it will not.
In case,
and then you'll have this Sylvan Safekeeper in play.
And that Sylvan Safekeeper will be protecting itself.
Yeah,
with its lands. Safekeeper's interesting. It definitely, I like the card. You know, you can search for it with Green Sun Zenith. It definitely has some applications. There are cards that you want to protect.
Yeah, it seems like an awesome singleton for sure.
Yeah.
I think AJ's hand looks really bad. Is it like Edict, Pithing Needle, 2 lands or something like that?
Stink, stink, and more stink. In for 3.
Thalia Armageddon is something of a non-bow. I guess it's a combo if you can actually cast it.
Yeah, it is something of a non-bow. That's true.
It's sort of a combo too. Once you have Resolved Armageddon, then your Thalia is much better.
Sure. AJ going to cast 2 mana Brainstorm. Thalia really working throughout this game. One of the better cards in the format. One of the real selling points of this deck is it's probably the best Thalia deck in the format.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that some Goblin players. There was a Legacy deck that made top 8 of the Legacy Grand Prix. It was Goblin's deck, splashing Thalia off a Cavern and Aether Vial. I just don't think it's that good from Goblins. I think it's much better here. See a fake untap. He's going to sacrifice this Windswept Heath.
So Kory is going to go get a Dryad Arbor to increase the clock a little bit here, which puts AJ into. Because we're still 5 turns.
Yeah, it's
implied 4, I guess, because of the delta.
Yeah, we're in 4 turn range.
4,
we're in 4 turn range, possibly 3 because of the delta.
Yeah.
Sword of Herf and Durf, or Light and Shadow, which is also a non-bow with Thalia, but that's okay because once equipped, it's going to be rather good.
Yes. I had to assume AJ's hand's just like pretty light on action. He's been just passing a lot,
and the card that we know he has in his hand is Diabolic Edict, and that
he has a needle too.
And Diabolic Edict has gotten much worse because there's a Dryad Arbor in play and because Sylvan Safekeeper is in play. So Jacob will sacrifice one of those 2 cards before he sacrifices Thalia. Pithing Needle is okay. It makes it so that the Sword of Light and Shadow is less scary. But he's still under some significant pressure here.
Yeah. Thalia is unpleasant for most blue blaze decks.
Ponder. Especially decks
oh,
like
there we
AJ's.
go. There we go.
What did we find?
Dark Blast, Ghastly Demise, something else. Now, the Safekeeper hedges against a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it at least still gives them some sort of progress towards actually killing something. He needs to needle the sword. That's got to be the first order of business.
Yep. Now, we did speak about Armageddon earlier, and Land Armageddon would probably clean this game up.
I would have to imagine.
But with him attacking with Dryad Arbor, that means there's no Armageddon coming this turn. This looks like another Reliquary to me, and it is.
This is pretty risky business because Kory is playing right into the jaws of a theoretical perish.
Sure, sure. And it's rather important that AJ finds one. You know, he just set the top of his library, but I think he understands exactly how important Perish is now.
Yeah.
Or Dread of Night to get out from underneath this. That he needs to find something. He can't leave the top of his library as it is.
Right. He's got a one-turn window here to draw Perish. And between Perish and Dark Blast, the board is completely stabilized.
Yes.
But if he misses here, then that's probably it. Here it is. Perish.
Looked like a black card.
Yeah, it definitely looked like a black card. I assume he would have. AJ has a flair for the dramatic. I feel like he would have just. He would have miracled it.
Sure, sure. We got a reader. What, you guys didn't play that when you were 16? I did. I know what Ollie does.
We need to have drawn Perish.
How many Perish is saving this list? 2?
2 in the sideboard.
Okay. 2. 2 Manars. If it's pinpoint removal, it's not going to get the job done. Safekeeper's too good here.
Yeah. All right, let's see what we're gonna start here. Dark Blast on Thalia.
I don't need this.
He's gonna counter it.
See what else you can come up with. It's funny because a card like Damnation, which I think would be good in AJ's deck to begin with, is the card that like he really needs to get himself out of the situation.
Yeah. Although Perish would have gotten it done.
Perish definitely would have gotten it done. I do agree with that. The thing about Safekeeper also that I just had overlooked is that it also does fuel Knight of the Reliquary and makes it a big jerk by putting the lands in the graveyard that you have in play.
Yep.
So there's some nice synergy there as well. I think we're going to have a concession coming. Yep, there it is. Jacob Kory, 2-1 over AJ Sacher with his Maverick deck, his trusted ally that he is known for playing around the SoCal scene.
Yep.
So you said that Jacob had shelled out for some Savannahs, that sort of thing, after some rather good legacy performances. Mm-hmm. What exactly, how big is the scene down there? Where's the scene at for legacy in California?
I mean, it's